We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, the podcast where we explore the art of songwriting, celebrate incredible artists, and dive deep into the stories behind their music. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and as always, thank you for joining us. Our guests today on the pod are none other than indie icons, Sleigh Bells. The era-defining duo, made up of Alexis Krauss and Derek Miller, have spent the last decade and a half blending hip-hop, punk, techno, thrash metal and pop into something that is loud, chaotic and totally their own. With hits like Tell 'Em, Rill Rill and Comeback Kid, they've left an indelible mark on music, and many do credit them as early pioneers of what would eventually evolve into hyperpop. Now last Friday, Sleigh Bells released their brand new studio record titled Bunky Becky Birthday Boy. As always, it is a melting pot of sound full of razor-sharp hooks, noise pop textures, and the band's signature energy dialed all the way up to 11. Now in today's episode, we are chatting with Alexis and Derek about the creation of this new record. We discuss the evolution of their sound, their influence on a generation of younger hyperpop artists, and the importance of taking pride in your own art. We also get into what it's going to be like touring this new record across the US later this year. Now we want to say a massive thank you to Juliet for her help with today's episode. Bunky Becky Birthday Boy is out right now, and we've put links in the show notes on where you can grab the record, find those tour dates across America, and follow Sleigh Bells across their own socials. While you are in the show notes, please make sure to follow us on our socials and subscribe to this very podcast. This year alone, we've had guests like Franz Ferdinand, Mole Rat, Perfume Genius, Sharon Van Etten, the Goo Goo Dolls, and plenty more. So subscribing means that you won't miss out on any of our future episodes or guests. Now let's get into it. Here is our conversation with Alexis and Derek from Sleigh Bells. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Alexis and Derek from Sleigh Bells. Hello, team. How are we?
Doing great.
You can go first.
Oh yeah, I'm doing really well. Over here in snowy, cold New York. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
My absolute pleasure. Super excited to have you guys on. I'm not going to lie. When we did get word that there was a new Sleigh Bells record coming out, got very excited. And then when we got the call up, also super excited. So very glad to have you on. Thank you both for coming onto the podcast and for chatting about this brand new record from the band. I'm going to make sure I read the title correctly because there's a lot of alliteration and I feel that gives me some room for error. It's Bunky Becky Birthday Boy. It's out.
Yeah. That's it. You nailed it.
Firstly, congratulations on this album. It is a fantastic record. How are both of you feeling with a brand new record out in the world for people to listen to?
I mean, for me at this point, it's just like totally giddy. I mean, we've been doing it for a while now. And I think in the beginning, there's just so much fear and uncertainty. You know, in the beginning of a band, you're just like, there's imposter syndrome and just stuff like that at all times, a lot of anxiety. And this has just been a lot less, I don't want to use the word fraught because it's usually really exciting. But yeah, there's a lot less fear and uncertainty. Like I know how I feel about the record, I still really love it. That might change. A lot of times it does. But right now, I'm still really, really excited about it. And so I'm hyped.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I think with every album, there's a period where I just completely lose perspective. And that generally comes like after we've mixed it and mastered it and I'll listen to it. I'm just like, I don't know. And then there's a curve where like I fall madly in love with it again, because I'm always in love with it when we're making it and when we're recording. And now I've kind of like come around that curve again, and I'm really in love with it, and I'm very proud of what we've done. And so yeah, it feels really good.
I love to hear that. And I think proud is not a word that a lot of songwriters that we speak to on this podcast it almost seems like a bit of a funny thing for them to say that they're proud of their own music, because it almost comes across as like a bit of like
or something.
Exactly. Yeah. But like, why would you not be proud of this thing that you've spent so many hours and so much time and love putting into?
Yeah. And you also have to remember, like, for the listener, it helps to keep in mind that, like, for me, like, almost every day of my life revolves around the creative process in some way, shape, or form. Even if I'm shopping for groceries, like, whatever the newest track in is kind of kicking around in my head, and I'm trying to figure out how to make it better. And 9 times out of 10, it's just not that great. You know, it's like, it's not that we produce like 100 tracks a year or anything. We're not that band. But, you know, most days, nothing really exciting sparks off. So the few times a year when something good does happen, like, you really have to allow us to love it, because otherwise you're just wallowing in misery. You know what I mean? It's like, you have to like have those moments where, you know, you've done everything you can to sink it. You've poked as many holes as you can, and it's still floating. And you're just like, oh, finally. And you just have this little window of time where life is really, really great. You're like light on your feet. You spring out of bed. And then after a few weeks or maybe months, usually weeks for me, I like start to feel like, you know, like a fraud again, or just like, damn, I haven't done anything good in a while. Like, I wish I could do something good. And, you know, after about 2 years, you have hopefully a handful of songs that, you know, you've got 10 or 12 and you've got a record on your hands. And it's like, it's not, and again, just like pride in the work doesn't necessarily translate into like, you know, like it doesn't, like any confidence in the work doesn't automatically transfer into the rest of your life. You know, I might really believe in what we're working on, but maybe you're going through a tough time and you're not feeling great about yourself. So you have to, you know, there's a delineation between the two.
100%. It was actually something I wanted to kind of get to in a little bit, but I might kind of float the idea here now and we can see whether we want to keep talking about it, is one thing that I kind of love about this record is that, and it's always something that Sleigh Bells has done very well, is this beautifully like kaleidoscopic kind of spectrum of sounds and genres and mishmash of noises, but it always kind of beautifully becomes cohesive and makes it like a really interesting and fun time. And I think that while for the listener and especially at live shows, that does translate as a fun and exciting time for yourselves when life does happen, because life isn't all fun.
Sure.
I know that you've been a band for 17 years. I think you've probably gone through quite a bit of life together.
Yeah.
How does that, I guess, process work in terms of maintaining the kind of energy that you need to create something for Sleigh Bells when, you know, the outside, I think even the title kind of reflects part of like both the beginning and end of life in a way.
Sure. Alexis, if you want to jump in, because I could talk for like another hour about that particular part. I don't want to just steamroll.
Yeah, no, I'll jump in and then definitely would love to hear what Derek has to say. I mean, I guess it's such a big question. I mean, personally, I can speak for myself, you know, since we released Texas and toured, there's been a lot of highs in my life. You know, I got married, I had a baby, like I'm healthy, I'm doing really well in so many different capacities, but there's been a lot of pain. Like this past 2 or 3 years for me personally have been so full of pain, physical pain. I had a really bad, you know, shoulder injury and surgery, and then childbirth and like recovering from that. So like there's been a lot of physical pain for me, more than I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I think for me, the takeaway in general has just been profound appreciation and gratitude for like health and joy and wellness that comes out of that pain. And especially going through that pain while working on the album, whether it was writing or especially recording, like it was just even more of a catharsis for me than it normally is. Like physically just getting to sing always to me just like makes my dopamine and serotonin go crazy. Like actually, you know, just the power of like singing and using my voice. So like the physical embodiment of that was really healing. And then also just the creative process with this album. I mean, Derek and I have spoken about like the intimacy and trust that existed on this record. I mean, it's existed in our friendship and in our band relationship for many, many years now, but there was just like, there was like a solidity to our relationship. And when you go through that type of trauma and stuff together, and your bandmate is there for you like a rock, and there's like a patience there, it just grounds what you're creating in like more appreciation and excitement. And so I think for me, it was like a relief to have the rambunctiousness of this album and the cartoonishness and playfulness and, just like stepping into that character of using my voice in a way that's kind of all over the place. And that's not to say that the album doesn't, also deal with some heavy things, but yeah, it was just like, it was a real outlet for me this time around that I was constantly looking forward to, not necessarily as a distraction, because I was very much also trying to be present in what was going on. But, like it took me out of some heavy stuff. And so, yeah, I like poured all of that lightness into this album and all that joy. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like the one constant in my life, probably since, I started to feel it in 4th and 5th grade. So 10 or 11, that music was, the great love of my life. And by 14, it had like completely solved my existential crisis. Like I loved it enough to give my life to it. And like, that means you give your time to it. Mm-hmm. And so that's like, and also like I knew early on as well that it was going to be hard to control my appetites for everything, that I was, my brain was very intense and living in my body was going to be a crazy ass experience. And that definitely turned out to be the case. You know what I mean? I've had a lot of substance abuse issues, definitely wrestled with all that stuff. I knew early on, it wasn't like when the band happened. But the one constant was the thing in me that felt totally bulletproof. And this sounds sappy and sentimental, and it is, and I'm not going to apologize for it, but it was for how much I loved music and making records. That part of me was like white hot. It could not be touched. Like I could break promises to myself. I could break promises to people I love, when you're trying not to repeat past mistakes and this and that. But like the one thing in me that could never, ever be hurt was just how much I loved the creative process, by which I mean sitting down and just banging on, drum machines and synths and trying to find cool riffs. Like I always knew that I loved it enough that would be like what you would call like, today you would call it like your North Star or lighthouse. Like that's always the thing that kept me on the path. And yeah, I've just always been overly enthusiastic about it. And when I was younger, I was like kind of self-conscious about it. And now I can feel that it's a strength, because usually around this age, you start to like, all right, I'm going to chill out. I'm going to relax. Your output chills, kind of gets a little less. And I feel like for me, I almost feel the opposite. You know what I mean? I feel like my emotions, but part of that is just my love for making records and for other people's creativity as well is at an all-time high. I just have like a ferocious appetite for it. And that's, I think, the part that I've really liked about at least this stage of my life is knowing like, if I can manage that, it's going to be a strength. And so I've been able to do that better this time around. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. I think that it's always a funny thing of, I guess, what keeps driving you in terms of when it does come to music. And I think, Derek, you said it in a very matter-of-factly way in terms of that people shouldn't have to apologize for having that love of being creative and that love of making music. And I think that it is something that drives people's creative process. Although we don't make music, like the love of music is what's driven us to 400-something episodes of this podcast to chat to songwriters. It's this kind of thing of that I definitely can resonate with what both of you are saying in terms of make like that freedom and I guess that expression that you then feel from making music with this record. I would love to talk about maybe just something prior to the record before we get into the songwriting of it in terms of in the 17 years since Sleigh Bells has begun. I would say, I don't want to say that there's copycats, but I want to say that you guys are probably the OGs in a way, that there's a lot of bands that have been inspired and that have kind of come after you that I would say either reference Sleigh Bells, like refer to you as the origination or the inspiration for their band. And I know that there's also a lot of terms that might be, and please, after I say these, let me know if these resonate with you or if you hate these terms.
It's fine. We're not uptight about that stuff. Go ahead. Yeah.
But I know that terms like hyperpop, Indie sleaze is one that's thrown around a lot lately, and like electro clash bits and different pieces of those kind of words are all like hype words are thrown around. For yourselves, is it interesting to see what you guys do? And you've done very well on this record. I feel like this is a really good concentration of the band and what you guys do well. Is it interesting to see the effect that that has on other musicians and other bands that have then come since you first came out with Treats?
I mean, it's like, for me, it's the highest honor. I mean, can we curse on here or should I not?
Yeah, please.
It's like it's like the best shit ever. When I hear somebody's record, like, you know, a band that formed a few years ago, and my mind is blown, and I'm like, Jesus, this is fucking great, which is always a springboard for your own creativity, not in a competitive way, but in like, everybody else's greatness just makes me want to make the most out of my time as well. You know, that's the gift that, like, the things that I love give me. Whether it's basketball or a meal that I eat or somebody's record, it's like I'm more likely to wake up, go to the gym, and have an amazing day after seeing somebody hit a buzzer beater. Because I'm like, shit, man, they're not throwing their time away, so I don't want to either. You know, and that is an incredible gift that you get from the things that you love. But, dude, it's amazing. It makes me really warm and fuzzy. We kind of talked about this when we were working, when Rachel Brodsky was the woman who wrote our bio. So I guess technically that was kind of the first time we talked about the record, but, you know, that was just for her to put together the story. But I think she asked us that, and I said it warmed my heart to know that, like, other artists would be influenced by us, because we can be tough critics, like, you know, first and foremost on our own records, but others as well. You know, for me, never publicly, but, you know, there can be like, you can be dismissive. You can be, you know, a little cynical. That's definitely not the dominant side of me. But yeah, so when people who make records, especially records that you're really into, when you find out that they're fans of what you've done, yeah, like I said, it just makes me feel like all warm and fuzzy. It's amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree with Derek. I mean, I know everyone is talking about or refers to imposter syndrome, but I think that it is quite real, at least for me individually. Like, I love what we do and I believe in us, but I am always surprised either when like a fan comes up to us and says like, "Oh, I love your band," or says like, "Oh, I'm really inspired by this." It just, like, not that I feel like, why would you? Because I'm stoked on what we do, but there's just always a moment of like, wait, really? Like, we've inspired you, we've sparked something in you. And then certainly when, you know, to Derek's point, when they're making something great and then you become a fan, like, that is just such a beautiful full circle moment, right?
That's what it does. It completes the circle. And I've like said those exact words to people, like in direct messages, like, you know, not even naming names, but like a lot of artists that people will listen to, like somebody will send them to me the first time I'll hear them. They're like, "Yo, I think they might like your band," in like in a playful way. And I'll hear it and I'll be like, "This is so good." Like sometimes I'm like, "Yo, they've just this, you know, like." Anyway, like I'll digress for like 1,000 years. So all I'll say is that, like, yeah, the times where I bumped into those artists or exchanged messages and be like, "Yo, you guys are rad," and they're like, "Oh my God, we love you guys. We've been listening since," you know, if they're a younger generation, Treats would have come out when they're like 14, and you know, it's like I'm like I'll be like, "Well, the circle's complete. This is incredible. Thank you, and keep going. We love what you do. Hopefully, we'll bump into you someday." You know, that's what's cool about festivals, actually. Is like you get to meet a lot of artists that you listen to. I mean, hopefully not all the time, but like usually there's a couple of bands on a bill that you're really hyped to see, and you bump into them backstage, and you're like, yeah, it's just another group of people who are obsessed with what they're doing, trying to make it great.
And it's also strange because I feel, I mean, even though we've been doing this for a long time, like, I still approach it with a beginner's mind, and I still feel very much like a new kid on the block when it comes to like, you know, even just touring or releasing an album. Like, every time, it never feels tired to me, or it never feels like, "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing, and like, we got this, and like, we're, you know, old school at this." Like, it just always feels like we're these wide-eyed kids like doing it for the first time. And so it's kind of surreal to like process that amount of time and process the impact and influence that we've had on people sonically. Because you're just like, wait, what? Like, Treats just came out yesterday. What are we talking about? Like, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, it does feel that way. It's like, it's funny. Yeah. Anyway. 17 years. It definitely wasn't yesterday.
But I think almost approaching records in that kind of way, Alexis, in terms of like, as I think you used the term wide-eyed, like wide-eyed kids, it kind of then I feel helps play to the strengths of the band in that you're not repeating yourself, you're not making the same album twice, that there's not you know how some bands kind of get comfortable sometimes and you end up having five versions of the same album over 10 years. Like, I feel that Sleigh Bells has never fallen into, and at this point won't fall into that category. And so I think it plays to your strengths in a way. And in this new record, I think that also works as well. I was hoping that I might be a little bit self-indulgent and talk about one or two of the tracks that really stood out to me, if that's okay.
Please, as many tracks as you want. I'm totally down.
I had three that I kind of kept coming back to, and one in particular I liked badly. I thought that was a great track.
Yep.
Real Special Cool Thing, I thought was a fantastic track. The track I kept coming back to time and time again, and I think it was maybe because it was almost more traditional in a way that I expected from Sleigh Bells, and it flipped my mind on how I approach Sleigh Bells, was Roxette Rick, which I thought was a gorgeous track. Fantastic track.
Thank you. I love, all three of those are still favorites of mine, for sure.
I was hoping I might be bold enough to ask if you might care indulging us and maybe explain the inspiration behind Roxette Rick and where that song kind of came from.
That's a great place to start. So, like, technically it's a concept record. It's not imperative that, like, somebody knows what's going on with the narrative to appreciate the songs, and we really want the songs to stand on their own without any context. But, like, so it's about Bunky and Roxette. And Roxette, I'm definitely a lot more Bunky. She's like she's self-destructive. She's impulsive. She's emotional, like hyperbolic. And Roxette is way more measured. And it's just, I would say, better equipped to handle the human experience. Like, she's not cold or detached. She's not a nihilist. And so that's kind of her anthem. And, like, the pre-chorus sums up her philosophy, really. It's like, God forbid Roxette Rick has some fun before she splits. And then the next couple of lines, don't forget to shout and twist, blood and spit before you dip. Like, she can, like, get that. She can, like, get in it. She can, like, indulge, but she never overindulges. And she just has, like, I guess it's corny to say carefree, but she's kind of carefree in a way. And, like, that I am sometimes envious of, because I obsess, like, and again, like, I'm 43, so I've been living with this stuff for a while now, and I'm way better at managing it. But yeah, like, it's sort of aspirational for me to be like, yo, relax. And so we really wanted the instrumental to reflect that, just to not rush. The tempo's, I don't know where it's around, like maybe 70-ish or 80. And especially the pre-chorus just has, like, that sparkly bell synth, that bell pad. And Alexis, your melody there, I remember originally what was happening beneath it was really, really busy. It was kind of like the verses. And it was like, it was just taking up so much space. And I remember sending you a version because she had her vocal done. And all I wanted was her hook, just that, like, God forbid Roxette Rick, because it just, like, puts me, I don't know, in such a good headspace. And it feels like, I hope it feels like the theme of the track, which is like, don't worry about, like, it's not like escapism or anything, but just to enjoy a good moment when you happen to be in one. And, like, Roxette does that all the time. So, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my take on it. But Krauss, you nailed it. Like, your melody feels like Roxette to me, which is, like, part of the magic of making records. Sometimes that happens. And
that's what I feel like or that's the challenge I set out to, accomplish when Derek sends me a track and lyrics. Like, I'm like, okay, how do I figure out the melody, the arrangement that is going to meet the mood, the energy, the feel, the story, it's like, and so that is just, I love that. I love that challenge. I love that, that process. And, no, I just wanted it to feel like her voice. And I also wanted it's hard for me to not hear the word Roxette without thinking about the band Roxette.
Yeah, it's her name is an homage to Roxette, right. in the Cars, Rick Ocasek. Yeah,
totally. And so I think, like, vocally, the approach on this one, especially with the chorus, like, there was a lot of just thinking about, like, bigger bolder, just like completely unself-conscious ballad, like rock ballad performances, you know, whether it's a band like Heart or Roxette, and like that they just like cut through you, but are also just have that, like, you know, that pop, and then obviously
still has a lot of heart.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Marie, Per and Marie from Roxette, the like great Swedish pop duo, are a huge part of my life. Their hits are like some of my favorite songs of all time, and have been since I was a little kid. They're. It's weird. You're almost tempted to say that they're underrated, but they're not. Like, I guarantee you, people listen to their biggest songs like a billion times a year, or whatever the stats are. They're still greatly appreciated, certainly by us. But yeah, I mean, God, what a powerful voice. Rest in peace. She passed not too long ago. But hey, she did it. She definitely did it. So
I feel like they fall into that category of, not underrated, but you almost tend to forget how good they are, in terms of that it's just that thing of that they're probably rated fantastic songs, but it's just you forget, and then you hear it and it's like, oh, fuck, that's right. This song or this kind of performance.
Dude, totally. You hear like the look and like that riff kicks off, and the whole track is like, it's kind of flawless. It's just flawless emotional pop music. You know, there's just like, and it's just jam-packed full of imagination. There's nothing lazy about it sonically. The production, the execution, everything is just like airtight. And that's great. Like it's maybe the flip of like punk rock or something, like music made with glue and toothpicks, which I loved just as much, but it's, you know, it's a different approach. And, but anyway, yeah, shout out Roxette. Just two of the best.
Look, with all due respect to Roxette, there is something very special about this album from Sleigh Bells, because I don't want to kind of get too sidetracked. We can talk about Roxette's discography for a little while longer if we chose to.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally.
I know that in May, so full disclosure to people listening to this episode, this is coming out when the album is out. We might be speaking a little bit earlier in time, but I know that in May there are a bunch of tour dates that are taking you around the States. We're hoping to be in the US in May, so hopefully going to try and catch you at one or two shows. Curious for yourselves, when a new album is put out, is there and obviously we never play favorites, but is there a certain track you're looking forward to most, to kind of putting into that live arena and giving it its live debut?
I mean, Krauss, you and I have been talking about Badly.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I just talked for like a billion years, so you go first.
No, I mean, we can totally give Badly some love. Yeah, I mean, I love Badly. Badly was one of those tracks that Derek and I think it was the last thing that we recorded.
It's the newest song. It's the newest song on the record.
It's the newest song, yeah.
By far, yeah. It came out of an older idea, but that was in a very different form. It's very much, you know, a new thing.
Totally. And we had been working on another track, and I'll remember because it was, I think Wilder's my son, and I think he was like 4 months old around the time that we recorded it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I remember Derek like hitting me up and being like, "Oh, let's work on this. This was a different song. It was not Badly, and like, come over and we'll work on this." And I was being like a little like, "Okay, like Alexis, you can do this. Like maybe we thought the album was done, but like just go over. It'll be a good time. It's always a good time." And we worked on this one song, and it was cool, but it just like wasn't it. And then we just like, basically, we don't have that many moments where we just like write something together on the spot, and we just like like the chorus of Badly just kind of came out.
Yeah.
And we just both looked at each other. We're like, can we get away with this? And we were like, fuck yeah, we love this.
Yeah, it was definitely, we were both kind of suspicious of it because the tempo is really different for us. The kick and snare pattern is really straightforward. It's kind of like definitely indebted to like Fight for Your Right to Party. You know, it felt like, is this pastiche? Is it fresh enough? Does it sound like us? And I mean, even like the very first thing you hear Alexis say is, "You got to be kidding me." And it's kind of our version of like, you know, those reaction videos on YouTube. There's like this whole industry of people listening to stuff and reacting. And it's like some of those accounts are huge. And like that was our joke version of that. Like Alexis hearing it, it's just like goo ga goo ga goo goo ga. And I'm using a Lynn snare, which I've never used before. So we're doing like we're kind of breaking the mold. It's like almost a little too conventional, or that's how it felt. And so for her to be like, "You got to be kidding me," and then like in my mind, I'm going like, "Yo, just give it a chance." And she finally goes, "All right, all right." Starts laughing, and then the chorus kicks off. So that's sort of acknowledging that, maybe it's like a little bit of a different look for us, but yeah, it's like one of my favorite tracks on the record now for sure. It's it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like it's a fun track, and some music should, but not all of it. And that track definitely is like, it's probably the most playful on the record. And it's like 4 chords. It's really easy to play. So I can just like basically be in midair the whole time if I want to, just run around. And we're very like, it's a very physical live show. So I'm really excited to play it.
Yeah, it has like that song to me, like it like honors like bands like the Go-Go's and the Bangles, or like my attempt vocally to like do that, especially in the verses. And you listen to some of those songs, right? Like I was listening to like Our Lips Are Sealed and just,
oh God,
and you're just like, what? Like how this song is just so, it just makes you feel so good. And you're just like locked into it. And there's like an easy breezy quality to it, but yet it still has teeth and not comparing us to the Go-Go's or the Bangles, great bands, but like that to me is what Badly is. Like, it's just one of those tracks where you're just like, I don't want to deny the like infectiousness of this song because and I think live, I think that will really connect with people. It's just like, it's got swagger, it's got a joy to it. And I hope our fans will really connect with it in the live setting.
I have no doubt that they will. I'm so super excited for these live shows. Had the very fortunate experience back as a young 20-something man, flew over from Australia to the States, and we went to Coachella, I think in 2011, when you played in support of Treats. And I remember standing there by myself. Show. Yeah. Standing there in the field by myself and just like soaking in the Sleigh Bells experience, and it was mind-blowing to say the least. So,
dude, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Terrifying moment for sure.
Wow. Yeah.
You guys.
Yeah, but it was still, we had a blast for sure.
Look, I think anyone who is going to catch you, whether it was back then, but especially now for this album, I think they're going to have a fantastic time. We're going to have all the tour dates in today's show notes. We would usually wrap up asking, I guess, what they're currently listening to. I'm going to go alphabetically, so I'm not playing favorites. Alexis, I will start with you. Is there anything at the moment that's currently on high rotation for yourself?
Yeah, I feel like me and the rest of the world, I'm just obsessed with Doechii. So Alligator Bites Never Heal. Just like on heavy rotation. I'll just stick with that. I'm just a big fan, and I'm really like getting like deep into the album now, and like Boiled Peanuts is just, I'm like, I love this song so much.
Yeah, Ranger. We've been spinning the new SZA heavily, especially Kitchen. We're both obsessed with Kitchen. I love Another Life. Crybaby, Scorsese Baby Daddy. So the new SZA, the new Tyler record, Chromacopia. Dude, the Doechii feature on that track, Balloon, it's the second to last track. He kind of buried it, and it's one of the best tracks on the record. And that's such a Tyler, the Creator move. And I mean that, and like with the highest respect. Like he's easily one of my favorite artists. Ada Rook from X Black Dresses. She just put out an incredible solo record. That's a very, very abrasive record. So if you're not in the mood for that, look for something else. But if you're up for it, the Rook record is incredible. Trent and Atticus' score for Challengers. I'm using first names. I've never met either of them. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. But I just feel like I've been listening to Trent Reznor's record since 92 is when I got the Broken EP. So you feel like you know these people. Yep. Anyway, their score for Challengers is incredible. And then, like for me, it's like, lifetime favorites, Deftones, Pumpkins, Janet Jackson, anything Jam and Lewis do, I love. So that's a pretty good start.
Very eclectic mix, but I kind of love that. I think that as mentioned by both, Doechii is getting a good run of streams and plays at the moment from everyone. But I love that there's obviously a good, almost similar to the band sound, a mishmash of kind of different artists, Smashing Pumpkins, Janet Jackson. Fantastic choices, team. Thank you very much. But both Alexis and Derek, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast to talk about the brand new Sleigh Bells record. It is called Bunky Becky Birthday Boy. It's out this week when people are listening to this episode. But thank you again for coming and have a chat.
Yo, thank you for covering the record. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, so real. Can't wait to get back. And thank you. Really appreciate it.